Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. We are in game week. Broncos v. Seahawks at Seattle. I'll be there on Sunday. It's a winnable game. It's a difficult game because that is one of the tough places to play in the NFL because of the noise. I get it. We're not talking about the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, Marshawn Lynch, Richard Sherman Seahawks, the Legion of Doom. I get it. We're not, but that place, no matter who's playing in that uniform, and they're wearing their old school 90s, even 80s jerseys, the ones I knew from Jim Zorn and Steve Largent and maybe Cortez Kennedy. They're breaking those out for the opener. That place will be lathered up, folks. It's going to be loud. It is not an easy place for a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix to make his debut, but the kid's played in a lot of hostile environments in the SEC and even in the Pac-12, even at UW in Seattle. So none of this, it's surprising because it's the NFL, but none of this is going to be jarring for him like it is for some players. Can he show poise? Can he show a way to keep the Broncos in the game, maybe sneak away with a victory before then turning around and hosting what we think will be Russell Wilson if he's not benched, Russell Wilson and the Steelers at home in week 2. So we're going to talk about over-under number for the Broncos. Can they trip the over? What is a realistic expectation? My biggest concern going into the season, and also my man, Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post, the just terrific beat writer for the Post. He will be joining me later in the program. You will not want to miss his insight on the team. He is out there every day, and he gives you his eyes and ears and everything that's going on as the Broncos get ready to face the Seahawks in the Seattle in a tough game, folks. As I mentioned, it's one of the loudest environments in football. What's it going to look like? We're going to get to all of that after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggatt Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. That's because it is. Darby Hoggatt cares. For years, we traveled the country watching baseball. I became his good friend. We became good friends. Many of his clients became good friends. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby's team a call. That's 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGAT, or visit the website at hoggattlaw.com. Welcome back to the Broncos pod with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. First, I want to thank the folks at Mile High Sports for moving this over to YouTube. Our last podcast just bounced. You guys were all over it in terms of the number of views. Thank you. Tell a friend, subscribe, make it part of your routine to listen to this pod. Well, the plan is to, again, drop them Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. 2 pods a week. We'll always have 1 guest a week. I'm shooting for 2 this season as well, but you can plan on kind of the post game. Excuse me, it won't be Tuesday. It's Tuesday during preview weeks or bye weeks. You're always going to have a pod either late Sunday night or early Monday morning following the games. And then on Friday, we do a preview pod looking ahead to next week's opponent. And again, the plan will be locker room sound from the game and then a guest on Friday. So thank you so much. The Cortland Sutton pod really did well. And that's a thank you to Broncos Country and a thank you to the folks at Mile High Sports who are absolutely amazing. But what's the season going to look like? We're here finally, my word. What is the over-under number? Well, most sports books have them around 5.5. That's not great. Not great. That would be their worst season in this stretch. I mean, that would be, of all these losing seasons, that would put them right back to tying their worst record. It would be worse because it's 17 games, not 16, in this 7 straight losing seasons, 8 without a playoff stretch they're in right now. I like the over. Not by a lot, but I like the over. I like the fit with Bo Nix, Bo the Builder, with Sean Payton. I like the fact they're young, they're hungry, you're liberated by being young. You don't know what you don't know at times. Now, it can lead to dumb mistakes. We know that. But you play with a freedom and energy and attitude and speed that maybe we haven't seen some from veteran teams around here. You're coachable because you got everything to prove. So I like the makeup of this group. And if I would have said the number right after camp, when you're optimistic, I think that's 7. But I picked 6 and 11 in our under construction magazine. Let me see if I have it over here somewhere. I don't have it with me, but our great magazine preview from the Denver Post. My prediction is 6-11. So I have him hitting the over. 6-11 with Bo Nix leaving the season as the franchise quarterback. That's a great season. I know that stinks. And most in Broncos country, based on my social media and my email, they're much more bullish. They're thinking 8 to 10 wins. 10 would be remarkable. I mean, let's just pump the brakes here. Go to Jiffy Lube. Make sure your car can stop because that you will need some brakes on that. 10? That means you're telling me they're this year's Texans. I don't think they're there yet. But I do think they have a chance to be really competitive and an interesting team. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And I think we might walk away from the season saying, are the Broncos cool again? And that could be 6-11. That could be 7-10. I think the ceiling for this team is 8. I think the floor is 5. I have them at 6. I think they could easily get to 8 if you look at the first part of that schedule. When you've got to beat the Steelers, you've got to beat the Panthers, you've got to beat when you look at who's the other team on that team? Oh, Saints. Those are the teams you got to beat. You got to beat them. And I think that's possible at home against some of those bad teams. You've got to find a way to do your, to basically to get after it at home and recreate a home field advantage. Part of the reason they've been terrible the last 8 years, they don't have a home field advantage anymore. It was one of the best in football. It's not. But I like them at 6, folks. You can shoot me a tweet at Troy Renck, TroyRenck. Tell me your prediction. Sean Keeler and I debated that yesterday in the Denver Post. We both think they can go over. I have them at 6. Love to see them get to 8 or 9 because what a story that would be. But they have some issues, which brings me to my next topic. Biggest concerns. Well, the first week it's just playing at Seattle with a rookie quarterback. But my biggest concerns for this team right now, where are they going to get the points from in the red zone? Javonte Williams has looked much better in camp. He's never been great in the red zone in his career, even when he was at his prime in his rookie season. Is it going to be Courtland Sutton or bust? Are we going to see a mixture of guys with Josh Reynolds, Courtland Sutton? Is it Greg Dulcich is finally going to realize his potential and become a guy that can score 5 or 6 touchdowns? I mean, and what about Marvin Mims? We'll talk to Parker Gabriel later about this, but what does it look like for Marvin Mims? But where are those points going to come from at the goal line and inside the 10-yard line? That's a concern for me. And my second concern is the secondary. Brandon Jones basically didn't play all of camp. And many of the guys they moved on from, I've been in favor of just because of what they're trying to accomplish here and going younger, moving on from Josie Jewell, moving on from Tim Patrick. I know it hurts, folks. I get it. But Justin Simmons, for all you can say, he was, if not their best player, one of their best players, certainly over the last 7 years. And Brandon Jones hasn't played in camp. So is he going to be ready at Seattle? Is the communication going to be right? Because that's a place you're playing too deep and communication's wrong. We saw what that looked like against Washington, at Miami, at Chicago last year. You make mistakes at safety with that communication, those are chunk plays. And those are the plays that can beat you. So will Brandon Jones be ready? Are we going to see Key? Are we going to see J.L. Skinner? That's a tough place for a rookie to play. A rookie or guys who haven't played much on the road. And then Riley Moss. They are going to target Riley Moss, folks. And he had a terrific camp. And I love everything about him. The way he competes, he's in position to make plays. But can he make plays that prevent completions? He's a smart player. But I don't want a guy that gives up, 8 catches for 120 yards, nothing big, but it's constantly 10, 10, 10. Like that won't work. Because they're going to go at him until he proves he can do it because every offense's first thing on the bullet board is don't challenge Pat Surtain until maybe late in the game or pick one moment. So those are my concerns. Where are the points going to come from in the red zone, specifically inside the 10, where the Broncos were an absolute disaster? And where in that secondary, who's going to step up? Is it going to be Brandon Jones? Is it going to be P.J. Locke? Is it going to be Riley Moss? And can Pat Surtain, as the result of people playing better around him, become more aggressive and make plays on the ball? That's what I want to see from Surtain this year. I've said this. He turns receivers into Chick-fil-A. They're never open on Sunday. And I love that about him. But he's got to make plays on the ball. Just covering him isn't enough with this defense. I want to see 4 or 5 picks from Pat. And his picks have gone down every year, in part because they don't throw at him. So if this secondary shows improvement and Vance Joseph creates pressure, they force him to go out Surtain, make a play on the ball, Pat. And that's what we want to see. But it's so fun that we're finally in the season. We can't talk about hypotheticals anymore. We're done with it. It's fake games are over. Here come the real impressions. And that starts on Sunday in Seattle. And nobody knows more about this team than Parker Gabriel. And we're going to get to him after the break. It's never a bad time to enhance your home. Glass doors can add a nice touch. That's where Jamie Haig comes in. He and his wife, Lisa, run RBJ Glass. They pride themselves on customer service, honesty, and integrity. You know, Jamie, he put a sliding glass door and screen in our house. It looks great. We've had it for more than a year. We love it. He does great work. He stands behind it. RBJ Glass installs European shower enclosures, standard shower glass. They do mirrors, window and glass replacement, insulated doggy doors, office cubicles, and small commercial storefronts. They have competitive prices and offer discounts to veterans, senior citizens, and have even accommodated single parents. So what are you waiting for? Give my friend Jamie, that's Jamie Haig, give him a call. It's RBJ Glass, 720-883-3144, 720-883-3144, or email Jamie at rbjglass2017@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Broncos Pod with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Let's not wait any longer. Let's bring in my friend, Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post, to talk not only the season opener, but the season in general. Parker, join the show. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Joined now, as I promised you, by Parker Gabriel, the terrific beat writer for the Denver Post. If you haven't seen it, I said it earlier, check out the magazine Under Construction. We did previewing the Broncos season, and the work that Parker and Ryan McFadden did was just absolutely brilliant. It is such a great primer for the season. Parker, how the heck are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Troy. How you doing?
Fantastic. You're off deadline for the magazine, so I know I could see your shoulders are finally back.
Nice and relaxed here now that we're just going into 18 straight weeks of football.
Yeah, so let's start there. Broncos, Seahawks in Seattle. It's such a different look with Sean Payton. Young, hungry, dangerous. Let's start with the overarching view of a young team going to Seattle, admittedly with a new coach, not the highest expectations. But just as we sit here early in the week, what are your expectations for this game for the Broncos, an opener on the road in Seattle?
Yeah, it's obviously not a tough place to play and win. I mean, it's among the loudest stadiums in the NFL. You know, Sean Payton said that the other day. You're breaking in a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, and so you know all of the just operationally, it's not an easy place to sort of dive feet first into being a quarterback in the NFL, and then on top of that, there's the unknown of you've got Mike Macdonald, youngest head coach in the NFL in Seattle, first-year head coach. You understand what he did as a defensive coach in Baltimore, but you also don't know quite how that translates into being in charge of a whole operation. So you have this sort of like, you don't quite know what you're going to get from Bo Nix. You don't quite know what you're going to get from the Broncos. You also don't know at all what you're going to get from Seattle. And so it makes it one of those, like, it's not quite a litmus test. I mean, it's the first time out, week one, but it is a good test of whether, veteran coach, young quarterback, or veteran quarterback and Geno Smith and young coach sort of gets off to a better start.
I got to believe that the Broncos with Sean Payton and Bo Nix will be in more synchronicity than Nate Hackett and Russell Wilson 2 years ago, in what might have been quite possibly the worst coach game I've ever seen in my life. Certainly the second half of that game. So, sorry, Broncos country, for bringing up that memory. But Parker, you did a brilliant piece this past Sunday on Bo Nix on kind of when guys knew in the locker room he was the guy. And it's always an important piece to be done when a young quarterback takes over, because players know. Like when I coach kids from when they were 5 to 18, I tell parents, you put them on the playground at 8, 9 years old, they're going to put a lineup together that looks pretty representative of what a coach would do. So players, for the most part, know. Bring out, what are some of those things? I think Mike McGlinchey said this, but what are some of the things the players told you, Parker, that indicates maybe that, Bo Nix is a little different in terms of that experience from 61 FBS starts, that we always say that, and it's almost become this afterthought. But what are some of the tangible things players saw that made them believe, like, this guy is the guy?
I think it's mostly just about a lot of it's about stuff besides throwing the football, right? I mean, a lot of it's about maturity, leadership, and just not being scared. That's sort of what Mike McGlinchey said. Is the thing that Mike McGlinchey, the Broncos right tackle, said was when he sort of knew like, oh, this might be a little bit different. It wasn't a 25-yard out to the opposite hash or a tight ball in the red zone. He said Bo Nix sensed a pressure in practice and slid the offensive line and did it with confidence. And he was like, you just don't see, rookies 2 weeks into training camp doing those sorts of things at the line of scrimmage, having, he said either a guy doesn't have the guts to do that as a rookie, or he doesn't know to do that as a rookie and doesn't identify it. And so you've got, both of those things. And does that mean that it's going to be smooth and that it's all going to go great? Not necessarily, but it does put Bo Nix in a position where he's had enough moments in camp where guys have looked at him and said, this is what it's supposed to look like, not just throwing the football, but in the huddle, on the sideline, day to day in practice. And so that's really, I think, where he's won the locker room over.
And folks, this is Parker Gabriel again from the Denver Post. If you're not reading him, you are really sliding yourself. He's out there every day, does terrific work in our paper. I'm so happy to be part of the coverage team with him. And Parker knows. I mean, he's out there. And so I'm going to ask you, Parker, I am optimistic and excited about this team. Optimistic, and I guess realistic is more, I like what I'm seeing. Still think they're probably a 6-win team, maybe 7. But where is the scoring going to come from? That's when my biggest concern is I like Bo Nix, and I do think he's going to be the franchise quarterback when we leave this season. But where are the points going to come from? Is it Cortland Sutton? Is it Javonte Williams? Is it somebody? Is it Greg Dulcich-Cabani, the fashion statement? Where are these points going to come from in the red zone? Because that's especially goal-to-goal red zone just absolutely crushed the Broncos last year and drove Sean Payton crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it may be, Troy, that we end up this season with a Broncos team, just like good, bad, or otherwise, that looks so much different than last year's, especially on offense, that it becomes sort of folly to even compare them. But one of the things last year is they got to the red zone. They had about a league average number of trips to the red zone. They just were horrible at turning red zone opportunities into touchdowns overall, which drove Sean Payton nuts, especially because at one point, Russell Wilson had 18 touchdown passes and no picks in the red zone. And he was like, we're playing great in the red zone. Sean Payton was like, no, our red zone touchdown rate is terrible overall. So, I think
I asked him that question about Russell. Yeah. Question. He's doing well in the red zone. No, he's not.
No, he's not. And so that part of the equation is just you have the, are they going to move the ball between the 20s? That's usually the easy part in the NFL. And then once you're into the red zone, how can you turn red zone chances into touchdowns? And Sean Payton, usually the first thing he says is, if you want to be good in the red zone, you've got to be able to run the ball. Obviously, that doesn't mean, 17-yard touchdown runs all the time. It just means staying ahead of the sticks. If 5 yards is good in the middle of the field, 3.5 or 4 will do just fine in the red zone, that sort of thing. So to me, that makes the key to the whole thing the offensive line, and then Javonte Williams, Audric Estime, and Jaleel McLaughlin, right? I mean, if they can run the ball, and for all the things that Javonte Williams has done well in his career, he's never been a particularly strong goal line back. And so some combination of Javonte Williams in the run game, keeping Denver in good position, and maybe, honestly, the rookie Audric Estime is sort of a goal line hammer type of back. That to me seems like the recipe. And then obviously they've got big targets through the receiving core, all the guys you mentioned, especially Dulcich and Gabbana, as you said. I like that nickname. Those guys, if they don't have to have somebody that has 15 touchdowns. If you can spread the ball around and find ways across the goal line, you're going to be just fine in the NFL.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Sutton's got to be big. I mean, he's got a lot of incentive to be big, both with his incentive, literally and figuratively,
Yes.
incentive in the contract, and what's his future going to be look like. And you talk about this offensive line. They invested in Miners, in McGlinchey, in Powers. Your best played players have to play well. When you pay them well, they got to play well. When you're a team trying to turn the corner, I mean, it's just the reality of pro sports. I mean, I covered the Rockies, and it was like that. Like if Tulo and Cargo weren't great, the Rockies stunk. Like your best players have to play well when you don't have 9 Pro Bowlers. I mean, you got to have them play well. We'll switch over to the other side of the ball. Biggest concerns on the other side of the ball. They're breaking in Riley Moss at starting corner opposite of Pat Surtain, and the safety position, Brandon Jones should be back. What does that secondary look like? What are your initial opinions on how Riley Moss might do early in this season?
Yeah, I think it's going to look different. That's the main thing. It's going to look a lot different than where we sort of left off with this team in December and January last year. So, they have to get production from some guys that haven't done it before, especially at safety. And like you say, Troy, I mean, Brandon Jones has been back out there. We haven't seen him do a lot of team stuff. And, if he's ready to go, then at best you're talking about a guy who's played 4 years, but also hasn't played much in training camp. And if he's not ready, then you're talking about PJ Locke and somebody who hasn't played at all in the NFL, whether it's Devin Key, JL Skinner, somebody from that group. Keidron Smith also made the 53-man roster. So, you're talking about a new look group and one that I think Vance Joseph and Jim Leonard, the secondary coach, have confidence in. But, Sean Payton always says confidence is born of demonstrated ability. And there's not a lot of demonstrated ability in that group. Not that they won't, they could well meet the challenge when it comes their way, but it's just a group that hasn't done it much before, aside from PJ Locke and Brandon Jones. And so, same thing for Riley Moss. Teams are going to go right at him, lining up opposite Pat Surtain. Whatever you can do to not throw the ball at number 2 is normally how offenses approach the Broncos defense. And so he's gonna have to hold up. But to me, the safety group is the one that's just, that's obviously critical positions. It's run game and pass game. And we're going to probably see some guys, depending on Brandon Jones, especially, we haven't seen either in the NFL at all, or at least with the Broncos. And
you wonder with Leonard if there'll be more sound assignment because that's what we saw early last year, especially Miami, and then the Washington game, Miami, and Chicago, just complete blown assignments on the back end of coverage where half guys are in man, half are in zone. I mean, we saw that with North Dakota State versus CU. Like, suddenly the guys forget to play too deep and there's no one in the middle of the field. Like, those kind of mistakes, to your point, and it's a great point with Brandon Jones having not played in camp. You make a mistake in the middle of the field, it's a touchdown or it's 40 yards. And in the NFL, those plays, we only get a couple of those a game. So they've got to be sound in their assignment. But I do like the attitude of this defense. You and I talked to DJ Jones about just the physicality. You've talked to Zach Allen. And I know you're really high on John Franklin Myers. Is this group up front, are we getting catfished, or is there a real possibility this group's going to be able to stop the run way better? Because essentially they rank last or second to last all year against the run. Even when they were playing well during the 5-game winning streak, they weren't stopping the run. What do you think of that new group up front? You add Malcolm Roach, you got Franklin Myers, DJ, Zach Allen. Should fans realistically think they'll be better, Parker, against the run?
Yeah, they have to be. And you never quite know until it's for real. I mean, you saw all the stuff about how Florida State might have the best defensive line in football. And now it's September 3rd and they're already 0-2 and they've gotten run over twice. So, you want to see it. You want to confirm it, obviously, in real life. But, there's no reason why they shouldn't be. They've upgraded multiple spots. They've added depth. And one of the things that Zach Allen told me during minicamp back in June, actually, was that, he said, you don't usually see one team, like a team where one guy has massive sack numbers and nobody else does anything, because it takes two. It takes a tandem, or it takes 3 guys. It takes depth. And it's sort of, the total is greater than the sum of the parts when you get it right. And so I think that's what, if you're looking for sort of an exponential jump on this defense, that's where it would come from. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen. But I just think John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen have known each other a long time. They have a good rapport. They love playing with each other. Malcolm Roach, provides a partner in the middle to DJ Jones that DJ just didn't really have last year. I mean, Mike Purcell, tried to hold up, and it just didn't always look good, especially against the run. And so, I think you can expect him, to be quite a bit better. At least that's what I expect. The thing is just a matter of how much. I mean, if you look at ESPN's win rates, they were near the bottom of the league, both in run defense and in pressure rate. And so, if you can get both to the middle of the league, that probably means a big improvement. But obviously, ideally, you would like to be better even than that. We'll get a couple more. Just joined in and you hit the middle of the pod. This is Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post is my guest. He is fantastic. You can read his work in the Denver Post. And Parker, what is your Twitter feed again? It's at P Gabriel, or is it at Parker Gabriel? Parker J. Gabriel.
Parker J. Gabriel, Esquire. Practices law on the side. I think he comes from a legal family, so.
I always
right?
say I am not a lawyer. Yeah, a little bit. Teachers and lawyers mostly. Yeah, and
There we
one
go.
dumb
See?
reporter.
Yeah, he became the disappointment of the family. Like me, like become a reporter. So a couple more, and we got to let Parker go. But one of the questions I'm getting a lot from people when I see him, whether at the grocery store or out and about, is what's going on with Marvin Mims? And he didn't do much in camp, and I get it. Preseason, we're not trying to show our offense, but I didn't see it a lot in practice, Parker. And obviously in special teams, nobody's showing anything with this new dynamic kickoff. But what is going on with Mims? Should we be concerned? Is there still a role here, both on the offense, the offense and in special teams?
Yeah, I think there's a role, and I think it will feel like he's sort of back in the mix as soon as the games count. That's my guess. Now, we spent all of last year saying, well, they got to get him the ball more. They'll definitely get him the ball more, and it never really happened. And so it's a curiosity for sure. There was a point in the middle of camp where he was really frustrated, outwardly, visibly, and that's not a great look, obviously, for a young player. But when the ball doesn't come your way, especially when you're expecting a bigger role, I also think it's natural. So, we'll see. I actually think, that he's one of the guys who's the complexion of his job maybe changed a little bit with the Broncos releasing Tim Patrick at the cutdown deadline. The thing about Marvin is he didn't play a ton in the slot last year. He was more, they liked him in the Jerry Jeudy role of playing outside. And so, are they going – Sean Payton likes big receivers. He likes big players in the slot. And he's also a guy that Sean Payton, he was really excited to draft in Marvin Mims. And so I'm interested to see how they deploy the skill set. You hope it's not sort of like the end around and gadget stuff. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he'll have the ball thrown his way a lot. And then it's just a question of, in a receiver group that's full of guys that are 6'2" and 6'3", does he provide enough juice just in terms of the athletic ability and the speed that he's as dangerous as those other guys?
Yeah, because the speed is real. He can take the top off, but they got to find the fit. Because as you said, we all joked last year. It was like the better he got, the less he played. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, and then Judy's gone because it was basically described as, well, he just wasn't going to play in front of Jeudy. Well, Judy's not here. And in camp, it didn't materialize. So I know Broncos country is hoping you're right there. We'll get you off with a couple fun ones here, Parker. One, the over-under number for the Broncos. I talked about it earlier in my program. What do you think is a realistic win total for this team this season? New quarterback, breaking in a lot of new young players, certainly on the 2D depth chart, a lot of young players.
Yeah, I think over 5.5, but I don't know by how much. I mean, I think this team has a little bit more upward mobility than last year's group did. That just felt like an 8-9 team kind of all the way, and that's where it ended up. It was a roller coaster to get there, 1-5, and then 5 in a row. And are we going to make the playoffs? And then no, struggle down the stretch. But to me, this one, there's more variance in this team. Like, I think 6 and 7 wins is kind of like a realistic area. But if Bo Nix plays well right from the start, then it's sort of like all bets are off, right? And so to me, that's the depth is a question overall on the roster. Health is always a question overall on the roster. I think, the modest expectations are obviously for a reason. And so I picked him at 6-11. If it had been right at the end of camp when I made the prediction, I might have gone to 7. But I just think that's sort of the team you're talking about. And then the upward mobility is if the quarterback and the young, core really gets off to a good start.
Last question, and it could be quick for you. Again, this is Parker Gabriel from the Post. You covered Nebraska several years. It's Nebraska week here. See you at Lincoln Memorial Stadium. You know how hard that place is to play. What do you think? Do the Buffs have a chance? You covered a lot of disappointing teams there. Then you got to come here and cover some equally disappointing teams here in Denver. What do you think? Do the Buffs have a chance on Saturday night in Lincoln, Parker?
I tell people all the time, there are so many similarities between covering Nebraska for 5 years, the 5 years I did, and then covering the Broncos. It's really sort of remarkable. But I think CU has a chance, just the playmakers. It was a little bit of a different kind of game last year. And obviously CU dominated Nebraska last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. Year 2 under Matt Rule has been good for him. It was good for him at Temple. It was good for him at Baylor. NFL obviously was a different story. So they're big and physical. They're going to run the ball, sort of different styles of offense, I think. And Nebraska's been really good against the run, so I wouldn't imagine CU's going to run the ball. It's a matter of playmakers on both sides. I like Nebraska in the game, but the thing about that is I've thought that they were this must be the year that they're going to have some sort of breakthrough about the last 7 seasons, and it hasn't happened. So with Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter, anything's possible. But I like the Huskers at home for the first time in quite a while.
Well, you heard it there first, so you can blame him if the Huskers win. I agree. That's a tough game for the Buffs to win, and the fact they don't run the ball and don't have balance. I've been to that stadium, I think, 3 times, covered games. It's a very difficult place to play, not unlike Seattle, so a lot of similarities. Parker, you are the best. Thank you for taking out some time on your off day on a Tuesday. I will see you out there this week as we're finally real games. No more fake impressions, Parker.
That's right. Yeah, see you at the facility, and then we'll see you in Seattle.
You're the best, my friend. Take care.